Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of the X Podcast. My name is Kevin. It's great to have you here with us today with our producer, Lydia, Tim, and Russ. How are you guys doing today?
I'm good.
Wonderful. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Soon. Yeah, Christmas
Yep.
is coming up.
Merry Christmas.
Are you
Great.
guys ready?
I've been ready.
You've been ready? What'd you
Been
give me?
ready.
Did you give
You'll
me an
see.
Oculus?
Oh, I would like one.
I heard you just discovered that the
Just-
other day.
just-
I
how'd you hear
want
that?
one after he was talking about
Wait,
it.
how'd
Some
you
on
hear it?
Facebook or
I
something,
want an
didn't
Oculus, too.
Was there something on Facebook?
You said something about it somewhere.
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Virtual reality.
So let me just tell you something real quick.
Mhm.
If you're listening to this, I know when you're listening to this, I want an Oculus. So if
Oh,
you are
oh.
sending in
So, okay,
gifts to the
if
podcast host,
if your name
I
is
want an
Mr. or
Oculus.
Mrs. Moore,
Oculus
and
2.
you have a son named Russ,
let me tell you something.
He's asking
a few
for an
weeks ago, we
Oculus.
talked about the metaverse, and my buddy, when I went, flew home for Thanksgiving, we went out to some like little one of those arcade game bowling places, whatever, and we ended up in a debate on politics. We said we're not going to do this. We ended up in a debate, and then halfway through it, he goes, "Have you ever played the Oculus?" And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Let's go play the Oculus." We went there. I'm telling you, I don't know that I've ever done when the last time I tried any kind of the most current version of a virtual reality thing. That was the craziest. I know I'm late to the game, and some of you are like, "Well, duh." That was the craziest thing I've ever done in my life. I'll show you the videos later. You'll laugh till you cry. My buddy
That's
is.
why I don't want to do it. It makes you very vulnerable.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
want to do it.
It's like coming off anesthesia.
I should have known that he was
Oh.
filming. The videos I'm watching later. I am on my knees. I was yelling. I was yelling.
I want to see that video.
I thought I showed you.
No, you
So
didn't show
then
me
this is
crying on the floor.
this is
in
the
a
cruel
fetal
side of me.
position.
I was supposed to have dinner with my parents later. I'm hijacking this already. And I said, "Mom, Dad, you need you to come over to Colt's house right now." They said, "Is everything okay?" I said, "Just trust me. Come over here right now." I sent them the address.
They're racing, breaking the speed limit,
Yeah.
thinking something bad's happened.
my mom is like flying in outer space. It was the greatest night. I felt like a kid in a candy store. It was the most fun thing ever. Hey, on the
need
phone
one.
this morning, Jenny said we need to get an Oculus.
Okay.
We need to do some outtakes.
I think we need an Oculus.
Well, this is good. This is a
Alright,
good
so
start to this conversation.
Yes, it is.
Um, so speaking of Oculus,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
virtual reality,
Yeah.
I think that sometimes the future can look like virtual reality to young people.
I agree.
So that's what we want to see how to do that.
I like that. That's a good
So
time.
It's like, what is reality?
That was my best shot. So why don't you
Let's talk about it.
Tim, give us a little bit of a frame of reference for today's conversation.
Okay. I was listening to another podcast, and I heard them make reference to a New England Journal of Medicine article that came out in 2018. And the conversation they had was kind of fascinating, and I thought we should come and have an offshoot conversation around this. And because it's something that I've run into, having, I think, both of my daughters getting older, and my oldest is now a nurse, and she's married, but my youngest is in that phase. She's a junior. She's enrolled in college and taking some college classes, trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. And so I've had several of those conversations, not just as a father, but in life. And I just think it's fascinating I'm in a different stage in life, but it's fascinating looking back and seeing someone going, I'm trying to figure out, where do I go? How do I make something of my life? What should I be? And I think that's a question that we ask when we're younger. I think it's also a question we might continue to ask even into our 20s, 30s, and 40s, because you may find yourself, if you're watching this now, you may find yourself in a job or a career that you're going, I just don't find a lot of purpose in this. Or, what happens a lot of times is we just, depending on life gets started, you might have to pay bills. And so you get a job, and then the job is pretty good, and you get a promotion, and next thing you know, 25 years later, you're still doing the same thing. It was never what you envisioned for your life. You're not even really sure why, but you can't leave it. You can't walk away from it because it pays you decent. But, and I think that what is felt when we're younger and at that point of finishing school, high school, and we got the whole world in front of us and our whole lives are in front of us. I think people are still sometimes feeling the same and having those same questions later in life too.
Do you think that the process of asking those questions has been any different from when you were that age to all of the what like your daughter would experience now in the modern age of social media, all sorts of things like that?
I do think it's a little bit different. When I remember when I graduated from high school,
which was what year?
in 19 something.
And from Great Depression and out, there's a whole lot that shifted.
The 20s were roaring.
The 2020s were roaring. I don't remember the 1920s. Nowhere near that. But when I graduated from high school, which was before 2000, just before 2000, 1990s, in the 90s. I remember
early 90s?
Just before 2000.
Early 90s.
Early midnight. Okay, early 90s.
Okay.
When did you graduate?
93.
Those were preacher numbers. you just gave.
1993. That was preacher stats. I remember of my graduating class, about half of them knowing they were going to college. Other half unsure, maybe going to the military, maybe doing this, but it was just undetermined or whatever.
Which was always like a scarlet letter, if you were undetermined. It
Well,
felt like at
no,
that time.
not back then. I don't think it was. What I've noticed as when I watched my oldest daughter graduate was, because they would often at the graduation when they announce someone, they would say what they're doing or listed and, or other things that she did when she was in her senior year, and it literally felt like 95% of them said, "I'm going to this college and I'm going to be this." And so I feel like there's the expectation to know what you're going to be for the rest of your life, and that is a daunting question.
Yeah.
And that is what 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds are feeling today. It's like, and I can tell because my daughter Audrey, I can sense that kind of angst. I don't know, but they feel the pressure. Okay, you need to make a decision.
Right.
You need to commit.
Right.
Where are you going to college?
Right.
What are you going to be? I mean, they're already, by a junior year, you're supposed to be having college visits, if not by senior year. And that's just a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of pressure to be that young. You've barely experienced any of life, and yet you're supposed to make a decision that's going to change the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So, I have literally given advice to my daughter's friends, to other ones, and they're like, I don't know this. I'm like, well, then don't go to college. And it's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I would suggest don't go to college. If you don't know what you want to go to school for, then I would encourage you, and this is just me personally, again, every parent, you might go, I don't want my kids to hear this. That's fine. But what I remember experiencing when I was in college, and I went to college the year after I graduated. I took one class. I enrolled in community college. I moved back from Germany. I was like, okay, I better go to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I took one class. Okay, I think actually my parents said that if you are going to school in college, you can stay and live at home rent-free. And if you're not, then you're going to pay rent, right, as soon as I graduated. So that was motivation to go to school. I went for one quarter, and I took one class, and I got an A in it, and I hated it, every minute of it, and I dropped out. And I didn't go back to school until years later. I went to work, and I paid rent. I went to work and paid rent, but I did not go to school, and I'm actually glad I did. And then when I went to school later, because I actually went to school for a purpose. I went because I was pursuing a passion or something I wanted to do. I had a completely different outlook on life, and I was sitting in classes with kids who were there whose parents were either paying for their college or they were borrowing money for it, and they didn't care about school, and it was a requirement, and they had no drive. You could just tell they were just there because they had to, and I had a different perspective. I was there because I wanted to learn something. I was excited about it. And so my perspective has been, if you're not sure what you want to be, go and experience life a little bit.
Yeah.
Figure that out. Don't waste money and time.
How do you do that without, how would you tell someone to do that without wasting time or life?
Well, okay.
What would be the balance there?
I think you need to work. I think that you need to experience. Here's what's interesting today in the age of social media and the instant success stories that we see plastered all over social media of influencers and these people who have made all this kind of money and everything. There's an expectation that everybody wants to be. I want to own a company. I want to start a business. I want to be the CEO. I want to be the lead in whatever. And I don't think that you actually will be able to handle the weight of any of those kind of roles, any of those type of just goals, those dreams, until you actually know what it's like to work for somebody, till you know what it's like to have a job where you are required to show up at a certain time. Yeah. I've had to work jobs where you clock in, you clock out, you take a lunch, you only get so much time, you only earn so much vacation time, and again, I know today's age, everybody wants. I want a job where I can work from home, I can work as few hours as possible, I can make a bunch of money, and I can make a difference. Hey, if you can find that job, you tell me. Let me know where that one exists, okay? And I just think that we haven't lived. Some of the things that have brought value to my life was having to learn to work hard, having to do some jobs I really didn't want to do, having to work for some bosses I really didn't love, having to do that because it taught me some things about life. Yeah. And so when the table was turned or the shoe was on the other foot, I'm trying to think of any other one I can use, that all of a sudden now I can know what it's like. Boy, I've been under this kind of person. I want to be a different kind of person when I'm in that seat.
Right. You had to lead because you want to
follow. And so I feel like I didn't waste. I worked full time. Never didn't work full time. Right. I got married while I was working full time. Still hadn't gone to college. So paying bills on my own, building credit. I was adulting. Yeah. But I didn't know what I wanted to do yet.
You were building healthy patterns that would support whatever you ended up doing.
The vision or the dream, but I didn't know what I really wanted to do. And I'm not even talking about being a pastor. I didn't until I had been. I worked for about 5 or 6 years before I realized, and this was before I even went into ministry. Before I realized that I wanted to go into information technology. So I worked I worked several jobs, and I worked at a VA medical center and a federal job for 5 years doing a variety of different things. Thought I wanted to go to school for accounting. Went to school for a little bit because I was working in the accounting department, and 1 quarter into that, I went, well, I do not want to be an accountant. That was a big mistake, even though I was in a job and I was doing well and I saw upward mobility. And so it wasn't, and then once I discovered, I love this career, information technology, I loved school. My whole attitude was different. I loved being there. I loved learning. I loved the process. And then I enjoyed that when I was in that season of my life. And then it was different when I felt called to go into ministry as well. So I just think it's interesting sitting in my seat now, looking back on someone when I was, 20 years before. I would have never envisioned my life going the way it has. But I also realized, I don't know that I could have painted the picture of where I am 25 years ago.
No way.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I just don't think I could have, but I think that's the pressure people feel.
Yeah, I think when I graduated, it was definitely the whole scarlet letter thing. You either were going to a college, and it was you're either going to a smaller private college because you wanted to continue playing a sport, or you went to got the best degree, best university on that you could put on your senior yearbook, or you went to the military and everybody stood up for you and clapped for you at graduation, or we just didn't really acknowledge you because you weren't.
You
doing
might as well have
any
been a
of those
dropout,
things.
even though you graduated.
Yeah, every one of the people that I hung out with, it was if you weren't going to college, it was that wasn't even a question. You're not going to college, or even gap years. That I was before gap years, so we didn't do that either. But I think we're in an age where there's a revolt kind of to that. Yeah. I have a brother who's in 2020, I think he's a junior year at Ohio University, and that's when they all went online. And just the quality of education, I'm sure not just at OU, but all across the country, just the quality went, or at least it felt like, why am I paying this much money annually for this when it feels like I'm watching a YouTube video? Yeah. Good point. And so now there's this wave of people, I think, questioning the how necessary for everybody. It's do we need another gender studies degree.
Yeah.
Like what is that really going to? Why'd you just pay $100,000 for that?
Right.
Or, I'm sure there's degrees.
And
all over
tuition
there.
has climbed dramatically.
Almost
I think I heard
$50,000 a year.
it's just gone through the roof.
I think public schools even are in the $30,000 a year neighborhood.
Yeah.
which is sickening. But what was I going to say? Oh,
And not that there's not value in it,
yeah,
but
right.
but it, only if it's necessary for what you feel passionate about
I
doing.
think it's definitely safe to say with the amount of people who are just crippled by student debt loans, government student debt loans that you can't declare bankruptcy on, that you keep young people from buying homes and from investing in retirement. There's I heard on Joe Rogan, it's like the first person ever that got their Social Security docked because they hadn't paid their student loans back yet.
Oh wow.
And but I think that it's a valid question. Is it really worth it for you in
Right.
today's age? You got people. The two voices that I love right on this right now are Gary V. and Gary Vaynerchuk and Barbara Corcoran, who are both
Barbara
saying
Corcoran.
work as many jobs as you can when you're
And these,
young.
by the way, are very successful
Yes,
people.
very successful.
Multi-millionaires.
Work however many jobs you can, because that's how you find what you're good at. Number one, a lot of people, you just don't know what you're good at until you've had the
Yeah.
opportunity to. You can say I like people, so I should go in sales, or I like people, so I want to go into ministry, or you learn about yourself along the way, right? What
Agree.
you're good at, what you're bad at, and you might like the stability of a job that's more in an accounting type field. What's that one office line? Like, I chose the safest thing I could. I'm an accountant for a paper company. Yeah, that's good. But a lot of people might like that, or if the management thing is for you, it's the types of things you learn as you get exposed. So I like those two voices right now that are more pushing it. No, go get a job, get a job, and if you don't like it, get another job.
Yeah.
And I think the podcast, that thing I know you're talking about that you referenced earlier, was pretty much saying the same thing. Like, because he tried to nail him down. I was like, well, should you go to college? And he's like, no, tell me. I was like, well, he said, if you want to have an experience where you can pay some money, have a little bit of an experience, and possibly land a job, he's like, it might be. He said, but if you could, what did he say? He said, if I could go back and intern and work and get experience that actually prepare me for the real world, and still through independent study gain an invaluable education, like honestly we're about to step into now, through master classes and whatever else, he said, I would do that.
Yeah, I'm not
It's just
saying
gonna
that when people
change.
say they're going to college for the experience, I'm not saying it's always bogus, but I'm saying that probably a net negative for people who go to
Yeah.
college for the experience.
Yeah.
Well, and someone's
Whether
paying for it.
Someone's paying for it, but I'm just talking about.
You probably had a couple
I'm not
of
even
euphoric
talking about
experiences.
right. I'm not talking about you. Like, I'm not talking about the $100,000 at least.
Right.
Bill that most people are getting into, and they're going to a 4-year university. But I'm just talking about all the other things that go along with it. It's not like a bunch of, I don't know. I haven't observed it to be a positive for most people.
Right.
I actually a very regretful thing for most people. So for people who want to go for the experience, but I will say this: I think it is. It's going to be a new era of how we look at education, how we look at announcing things. When I was in high school, I felt like it was like the announcement era. Everybody wanted to have a signing day, something they could post, something they could do whatever. And so this is a funny story I've never told anybody. I'm far enough away from it now I can tell it.
Oh.
So I had a signing day when I committed to a Division II baseball school, right, on a small scholarship, but I had a scholarship to a Division II baseball school. And I've seen signing days, but I'd never really been to one or understood what they were. And so I had signing day. We had a cake there. Grandma was there. Everybody's at the signing day. Teachers were there. Had in the classroom. And I'm like, and I had the pen in my hand. We took pictures. And I'm like, what do I do now?
What did I just do?
Well, what do I do now? And so I just signed the paper. It's like, all right, guys, we'll see you next time. And I didn't realize that people gave little speeches to thank all sorts of different people at their signing days. So I didn't say anything to anybody. I just signed the paper, took the pictures.
I've never been to a signing day.
Well, you didn't want to come to mine because we had good cake, but other than that, it was just kind of pictures. So if you see the pictures, you saw the whole thing.
Did you have a couple hats laying out on the table?
No,
And
it
so
wasn't
it's like, which
it
ones
wasn't,
you gonna
it wasn't
pick?
that one. Yeah.
Wasn't it LeBron, which place you gonna
Otterbein
go?
or oh my gosh! But I think just to take the pressure off young people to go, not everything has to be
Yeah.
an
Right.
announcement,
Right.
right? Who gives a rip?
And I don't think everything has to be decided by the time you wear your cap and gown.
And this
So,
is coming
like,
from
and
Mr.
I'm
Announcement.
just
Okay,
saying,
I made
don't-
lots
don't
of
feel the
announcements. And I'm
pressure.
telling
Yeah,
you,
I think
you
one
don't
of
have
the-
to do that.
It's there's something called Passion Camp at Daytona Beach that thousands of students go to. It's a it was like a conference, Christian conference for young people. You've taken a group of students. In 2016, it was like the second time I had taken a group of students there, and it's for middle school and high school students. But Lou Giglio, he's this visionary founder, kind of architect of churches and conferences.
Started church when he was 50, right?
Started church when he was 50.
Right.
Wow.
But he gave on the last night. I finally emailed the church and begged them to send me the message because it was for middle school and high school students. But it so impacted me. It was one of those messages like I will never forget. And it was so simple but profound. And so kind of on the flip side of what we're talking about, because everything's changing, but there's some principles that remain that could be helpful to anybody listening. And it was really interesting. He said. They sent an email and said they wanted parents to watch this one. They'd never done that before. They said, we want parents to tune in. And he said, I'm just going to go ahead and tell some parents you're not going to like what I'm about to say. He said, chances are, for those of you in this room talking to thousands of middle school and high school students that go to college, you either will change your major multiple times or you will end up not having a career in what you went to college for.
Yep.
He said, we have spent generation after generation trying to convince students to find their passion when what we really need to do, and this is a little bit more from a spiritual context maybe, is we need to cultivate people finding their purpose. He said, we try to get people to find their passion. What is it you're going to pick for life? What is it you're good at? He said, instead, we should find our purpose, and your passion will follow you.
Yeah.
And that may sound theoretical, but I've watched this play out. Like, there's a girl that ended up coming on staff in Atlanta, and I would at times try to nail down, like, okay, so are you called to full-time vocational ministry? Are you called to that? Because some people just know. Like, one thing, fortunately, that made life a little bit easier for me is I knew the moment I gave my life to Jesus, full-time vocational ministry, inspiring people in faith is my calling. What that looks like is taking on different manifestations. But I knew that what my purpose was, which made what my passions could be that follow that, whether it's writing, speaking, full-time, this, that, that was secondary. But like, for instance, this girl, she said she knew early on in life that her purpose was to spread joy. So before she came on church, she was actually, for like a brief minute, she was an actress in Hollywood. And she was that person when she walked into a room, would light up a room, would just make people smile. She knew in every room I go into, my purpose is to spread joy.
That's good.
I may have a different type of career.
Yeah.
For a minute, it might be ministry. For a minute, it might be acting. For a minute, it might be this. But my I'm not going to worry about nailing down what my lifelong passion is. That will find me. But I'm going to know what my purpose is. And so
That's so good.
it's almost deciding, okay, what's my mission statement for life? Because then if I can know what my purpose is, that takes the pressure off. It has to be this career or this
Yeah.
thing for this amount of time. Or I might blow up the box altogether and create a career that doesn't even exist.
Right.
Because the point's not the passion, the point's the purpose.
love
The
that.
job doesn't give you the fulfillment. It's the
Right.
people you meet and the things that you get
Well,
to.
and you can carry your purpose into any situation, and so I think that's beautiful. I wish I mean, I don't even know. It would be really hard for me, but it's like, okay, what is my purpose? You know, I understand what my role is as a pastor on this, but personally, and you know what I'll say, one of the things I've really noticed over the past year or so, I just think, I don't know, I'm reaching this age, and maybe it's with the kids and the things where I'm seeing life differently, and I'm seeing how I want my future to be differently,
Yeah.
and what I want to be, and what I want to leave as kind of a legacy. Like, you know, it's just, I think, again, you got little kids, and so, you know, when you're in the process of raising little kids, like all you can think is just, I've got to, like you said, be in the moment and do that. I think as they get a little older and you start to kind of think about it, and you know, I've gotten to just a stage where it's like, as I said before, like my kids, one's moved out, the other one is close to moving out, and I'm starting to think, okay, am I done? Is my life like that? You can get to a point, or even, I want to say, a middle age, you can get to a point in your 40s or your 50s or 60s, whatever, and you're like, my life's over. I think I missed it. It was like the 20s and 30s because that's what's sexy, and that's when you're the fittest, and that's when which isn't true. I've never
Look
been
at you
more,
now.
But
Glow
I'm
up.
just saying. So
Anyway, glow up.
that reminds me.
know.
So what? Let
Smile,
me.
show them the pearly whites.
So that reminds me, for everybody listening on podcast, that was helpful. Let me. That reminds me.
He did smile.
He did.
The article that was referenced. Let me say this, and then I want to ask you because I know you already heard this, but I want to ask you the question.
Yeah, I want.
This will be that way. I want to make sure we get this in on this conversation. And again, hopefully this just stirs some thought. I think one of the best things that will be said out of there is find your purpose, not just your passion, not just how much money you can make, not just what you think you'll be happy doing. Find your purpose and let the rest follow. Mm-hmm. This New England Journal of Medicine in 2018 did a study of the most productive decades. What do you think
Of people's lives.
of people's lives? The productive.
Like an age.
What is the most decade? So what is the most productive
as far as the age of the decade,
decade? Yes, based on age. What do you think came in number one, the most productive decade? Was it your 20s? It could be earlier. Could be your first 10 years, your teens, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, 70s. I don't even know how old you 80, 90, whatever.
That is crazy.
What do you think is the most productive decade of your life?
That's what I was telling you guys earlier. This has been my most reproductive decade. But
That's odd, not me.
productive decade, as far as what I mean, I'll take a guess.
Okay.
40 to 50?
No.
Wow.
Take another guess.
But that's crazy. I don't know.
Take another guess.
50 to 60.
No.
What is it?
Take another one.
60 to 70?
60 to 70.
And
So
what's the
most?
why?
Well, that's the most productive.
And the
decade.
second most
What's the
productive?
second most productive decade? We'll let you at least take your shot on that one.
50 to 60.
Nope.
70 to 80?
70 to 80.
Oh my gosh. But people die
Guess
at
what?
76.
Guess what the third most productive decade is?
Now I feel like you guys are joking with me.
No, it's not.
What is it?
It's 50 to 60. This was. It was.
Part of it was
fascinating.
they
I believe it.
Part of it, they're looking at
president,
successful
CEOs,
president, CEO
pastors of the
people,
largest churches in the world.
Nobel Peace Prize winners.
Yeah.
These are people in their 60s.
I believe it.
Again, I would have never. I heard that study and I was like, "There's no way." Right? Because I think most of the time what we think is, okay, my 20s, maybe that might be your, I don't know, your most fun decade. You know, I don't know, you're healthiest, you're fit, you can kind of do whatever, adventurous. 30s, you're usually, okay, building your career, kids, family, right? It's a 40s, okay, that's when people feel like, okay, my most financially productive decade. That's why I've heard 50s, you're winding down, you know. This said 60 to 70 was most productive decade.
Really?
And I was reading an article about this that was making an argument for why companies should be hiring older people, not younger. And they said for the longest time, companies have been thinking hire younger and younger because they're cheaper, because they have like energy because of this. And they're saying based on this stuff and other stuff, they were like hiring older people who have experience and work ethic and all these other things is actually more of a reason why. Which was shocking to me just to see some of these come out. But when I heard that, I got to be honest with you, I got a little bit excited.
I know.
Because I'm starting to get to an age where I'm starting to go.
Colonel Sanders was 80.
I wish I had done this.
Moses was 80 when he started. I mean,
Well,
Smith Wigglesworth was 50. You don't know what that is.
I know Smith Wigglesworth is.
Oh,
Thank
do?
you. Yeah.
But okay, I think.
But even like Louis Giglio, like I didn't know that necessarily.
He didn't plant a church till
50, and it's been very
Then he had a huge
successful. Whatever that
depression.
is, huh?
He got depressed after that.
Right after he started, yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
one of the observations that the podcast host made, I thought is worth saying though. It was so good. I thought he talked about in your 20s and 30s, take a million chances, go do everything, like take advantage of your youth, but. He said there seems to be a pressure nowadays to build the fire in those decades, become the CEO, make all the money. And he said if you live wisely and if you live well, he said really those decades are building the furnace. You're creating character. You're creating a pathway of patterns. You're creating the infrastructure of who you are. You're really, if you live well, you're taking risks. You're accomplishing a lot, but really you're learning. You're educating yourself. You are building the furnace that is big enough and sturdy enough to where in future decades you can have fires that just.
I think
thought so good.
That has been my biggest observation from having kids and having more kids. And it's like, aren't you so? I feel like your capacity just increases as a human. Like just because and you look at people who who haven't, maybe who are younger or they're newlyweds, haven't got married yet. They're like, "Oh, my life's so busy," and you're like, "Oh my God, like you have no idea."
Yeah,
You think of things like that, but everybody thinks that before they experience these things, and that can go for all sorts of different life experiences. Because I'm just, I guess I'd say it this way: I'm just astonished at the human ability to adapt and grow.
Yeah.
And it's not like your priorities change, or like time is definitely finite, but what you're able to get done in that time, like when you have responsibility, when you have clearer sense of what's important, and when you've made some mistakes and you know how to how to learn, and you know what to take seriously and you know what not to take seriously. I think that makes sense to me.
Isn't that interesting, though?
It is very interesting.
But here's one of the things that I think is the benefit, and this is what I would love for anybody who's
There's
listening
also
to
some
this.
urgency, though, right?
But that's what
end of life urgency.
Well,
right?
yes, I think well,
Or
okay.
not like end of life, but you know what I mean. Like you're more aware of the finality or the finitude of life, and I think that makes sense to me. That would.
But it's interesting.
accelerate.
It does in that one of the things I think could be freeing for anybody who's maybe watching this, listening to this, especially I want to say, because we do have people who listen to this that are younger and maybe they're trying to figure out. I would hope that maybe that relieves a little bit of the pressure. Because even for me, just even kind of in my age and place, I can sit there and look and go, gee, I felt like I would have done this by now, and I felt like I would have reached this mark, and I felt like I would have, you know what I mean? You can do all those things. But to hear that sometimes people's most productive decades are in a season, and it's not for everybody, when in my mind it was like, oh, that's when I thought everybody checked out.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have to check out there. Like, you can be incredibly productive in your 60s,
You know what I
your
think it almost
70s. And I mean, for me, I think that was just,
Yeah.
that was encouraging for me to not feel like I missed my best years. So I guess I want to say for those that maybe are getting a little older, even in your career, and maybe you're sitting in a career and maybe you're 40 or maybe you're 50 and I've been here for 20 years and I don't love this, but I'm 50, so you're thinking, I should be thinking about retirement. Oh, maybe not. Maybe we need to push back against that construct that's been pushed down on us to go, oh, you're 62, you better be retiring and just laying around doing nothing. I don't ever really want to do that.
No.
To me, that sounds like misery.
No,
I want to be productive. I want to be able to enjoy those seasons, but I think if you're in that
yeah.
season, you should be able to, I don't know.
It's funny. I was listening to a podcast with Levi, the Luscos, the other day, and Judah Smith challenged him to get the same tattoo that him and Justin Bieber have of "Better at 70" on their thighs. And another,
I'm going to get mine, but
Are you gonna get it?
it's going to say better at 60.
better at 60
Because
okay.
the 60s were the
60s, yeah.
I get what you're saying.
But
I'll write it on you.
I say that to say, like, it also makes you, like, it hopefully relieves unhealthy pressure, but then puts on you healthy pressure. And what I mean by that is when you begin to live for the long haul, hopefully there's a healthier pressure of, oh, I need to take care of myself for the long haul. I need to take care of myself physically, and I need to actually pay attention to things that long haul, what I eat's going to matter, how I take care of my mental health's going to matter, how I nurture relationships, the kind of regrets I want and don't want, what I live for, my priorities. So, hopefully it relieves. It's such a, we all know that comparison's such a deception, and it's such a trap, and it's there is no arbitrary, you need to do this by this.
Yeah.
There are certain markers of growth and maturity in adulthood, but the arbitrary lines we create in societal pressure sometimes is unhealthy. We can scrap that and just say, no, let me put a healthy pressure. How do I set myself up for long haul success?
I love it.
Yeah,
good.
I think it's so interesting that I think that study and that the most productive people are that age really just points to like what you guys have been speaking to, which is that character matters.
Yeah.
It still matters.
Yeah.
And what you do over, a multitude of years as far as who you are matters, and the relationships you build matter way more than is, I think that are, I want it now, I need to have it now, I need to have the title now, I need to have the influence now, I need to have the followers now, I need to have the clout now.
Yeah.
I think it just speaks against all of those things.
Yeah.
And that you are going to
Stop building a platform and build your character.
you can't build
your integrity.
Your
Build your work ethic.
Yeah.
the construct of your joy can't be built around like whether or not you get lucky.
Yeah.
And you do something that's viral, or you meet the right person at the right time who starts the right company that
Yeah.
you just happen to be in the right
Yep.
relationship with. So you're now you just can't.
Yeah.
You can't build your whole life on those foundations, but you can. I just like the furnace analogy. You can build the furnace. You know, you can just.
And so let that be
Don't build a
encouragement.
platform. Build patterns.
Yeah, I
Build
agree.
patterns for the
I think
future.
when you said patterns, and I know we could probably wrap this conversation up, but I know when you talked about building patterns, it made me think of a lot of the jobs that I had, even before I got into IT, before I ended up getting into ministry, that I look back on, that even some of those, I mean, I worked at a mail distribution thing for the limited brands, working at 4 a.m. till 12:30 in the afternoon. And so having to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to work and do this mind-numbing job of separating checks from whatever at a machine, I wasn't the greatest job. I did it for 6-8 months a year. I don't remember what it was. But what did I learn? I learned I have to get up. I can't be late. I have to get up I had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it forced me to go to bed at a certain hour. I learned what it is to have to sit there and have to work and have to, get through a full day. And there's things like that you can only learn being put in the grind of having to do a job you don't necessarily love, having to finish a project that is hard, that ends up paying dividends when you do end up in maybe a seat that you want to sit in, or you end up doing something that you are passionate about. And so, I think maybe to relieve a little bit of that pressure of the younger people as well. It's encouragement if you're a little bit older and you think, man, I missed it. Maybe not.
Right.
Maybe if you got the 70s still ahead of you, maybe you still have great years ahead of you of being really productive in life. And if you're really young, don't just feel the pressure of, I got to go to school and I got to get this debt and I don't even know what I want to do, and go work. Build character.
Yeah.
Build some consistency in your life. Build patterns and see where it takes you.
Love it.
So,
Fun conversation.
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tattoos after this?
yes, do it.
Okay,
Better at
let's do it.
60.
Better at 60.
Because that's the best decade.
I'll write on both legs. Okay. Thanks for being with us. We'd love to hear feedback from you. As always, you can email podcast@thex.church, and we will get back with you. Thanks to everyone who's been listening, liking, subscribing, sharing. We just love the crap out of you. And we'll see you next week for the next episode of the X Podcast.